Good morning, and thanks for joining us here on Leading Edge. I'm Jeff Smith in for Jerry Anderson this week. Now, in just a few minutes, I'm going to be joined by the Stone Foltz family attorney. Just this week, he and his team announcing a civil lawsuit naming Bowling Green State University in the death of one-time sophomore Stone Foltz, a young man who died after a night of being hazed into drinking a full handle of alcohol. We will talk to him about the end of the criminal trial. Also, now that case is headed for sentencing, the criminal part of it, and also where a number of civil suits stand. But first, 25 homicides, many of those young victims, and a gun violence problem in the Glass City that is going nowhere fast. There are a number of unsolved homicides that we are seeing. We are living in a community that seems to get more ruffled sometimes by the ways the political winds are blowing, more so than the tragic loss of life that we experience. The city of Toledo has rebranded its effort, though, to combat violence in the community and called it Save Our Community. Leading that effort, along with City Safety Director Brian Bird and also Angel Tucker, is our guest here today. David Bush, he is commissioner, along with violence interrupter Isaac Miles. Some of you may recognize Isaac because just a short time ago, Isaac was one of our leaders in action here at WTOL 11. Good to see both of you. Thank you for being here.
Thank you for having us.
David, let's start with you. New to this position, take me back to the interview process, if you can, and walk me through the questioning, the vision, the understanding of how you, with your background, come into this position and lead this effort.
Sure. First and foremost, born and raised in the city of Toledo. Born on 247 Palmwood, and being from that community, going to school to King School in that community, and working in my community for the last 2 decades, mentoring over 2,000 young youth and working with underserved families. This is something that I see more as a calling than as a job or a career, and definitely want to see a change in my community.
Besides geography, how did you convince the city of Toledo that, yes, I can do this, I can lead this effort? Because this is a grandiose type of idea, right? To combat violence, to stop the violence, to stop the shootings in our community, and obviously the violence among young people.
Right, just having the right mindset, having those connections, knowing the heartbeat of the community and wanting to see change, and being strictly focused on wanting to do all those different things.
How out of control is the violence? What is your read on it?
Oh, it's something that hasn't been seen before, but when I tell the average person, you have a smartphone, look at it. Violence is up all across the country. So this is something we want to tamper down within our community, and we want to see change, and we want to see it now.
Isaac, when we were talking outside before we started here today, you've been in this program. You were under it when Jerwan Armour was leading the effort. But talk a little bit about the changes that you have seen in that time, in the transition. And are you guys starting to make a difference as you see it?
Well, absolutely. I would say the biggest thing with the change that I've noticed is the backing of Mr. Bush and the violence interrupters. At one point in time, people that wasn't aware of what we did as violence interrupters, and I would say the city didn't do the greatest job of letting them know exactly what it was we did. So it kind of, we got negative feedback initially. But since Juwan left in the transition, it's been a lot more support, I would say, from everybody.
Lack of a definition for the community to understand how you guys were going to go about fixing things? Or was there confusion, are you saying, among the violence interrupters, the people who were out there in the communities, they didn't really know what the definition was?
Well, I think the community just didn't get a good rollout of the violence interrupters and how we work in one target area. Yeah. A lot of times I get people saying, well, there was a shooting on the north side, where were you violence interrupters? Initially, we explained that we were only in the Junction and Inglewood area, but for some reason, I think that got lost, and a lot of times when violence occurs, they come back to the violence interrupters. So we're trying to rebrand, like you said, and give them a more insight of exactly what it is we do as violence interrupters.
David, one of the things, and in fact, it has almost been a year since on this same show I interviewed Jawan, talking about the effort, talking about the progress, what they were going to do. One of the things he said to me was that his experience growing up, his background, even brushes with the law, added something to his taking his message to the streets of Toledo. Did that not work? Do you see that as an advantage or disadvantage?
I don't see it really either way.
Because I know in talking to Isaac has said, as you did on Palmwood, said, I grew up on these streets, right? I know these families that are still there. We've done so many interviews with city council people who have said, you know, I was trying to talk sense into the father of the son that I am now talking to. So it's a generational thing.
It is. It is. Life is totally different. You know, a lot of our kids are raised differently. But I grew up with a lack of resources also. But that was my situation, but never my destination. And that's the message that we're trying to get out here in the community about Save Our Community. That we want to provide those resources and we want to ensure that our residents are safe.
Yeah. Talk to me about your background as far as being in the library system, transitioning to this. What did you bring to the table from that experience? Also, Mad Poet Society, talk about that.
My life has always been spent in my calling as a change agent and working with families and coming from a time and place when I didn't have much. So being able to have the respect to knowing others who don't have much also, and being able to meet them at the point of their needs. Within the library, I was able to create a number of different programs all across the city of Toledo and work with youth who are marginalized. And the same thing with Mad Poet Society. That's something I always wanted to envision, that words can change things. We can speak life into people. Words can cause a war, but words can cause people to fall in love also.
Talk to me a little bit about the response. How are you getting into these communities, getting people to trust you, first and foremost, but also act as a change agent? Because you guys can't do everything. I mean, I think that's the misconception. You said to me, we're working in the Junction neighborhood, all of a sudden there's a shooting, let's say north side or on the west side of town. Why weren't you guys there? Well, you can't be everywhere.
Right, absolutely. And the reason we can impact the areas we impact is because we're from the area. So I grew up in the area. Everybody in the area knows me, so they buy into me. A big factor that people don't realize is growing up in the inner city, we have a lot of trust issues, right? So just building those relationships with those guys, them seeing me every day, I'm meeting them where they're at. They don't have to come to my office. I'm not having them come down to the city's government building. I go to where they're at. So it's a little bit different. So it shows them that they can trust me. I feel comfortable when I'm around them. So they buy into me because they know me, the biggest thing. So that's how we have the impact we do, because as violence interrupters, we all come from the area. So the people in the area are already familiar with us. They know, hey, Isaac, I talked to Isaac, he can help me with my GED. They know if I go talk to Isaac, he can help me find a job. They know when I'm in a community, it's for a positive impact. Yeah. So they know there's somebody there bringing resources to the community, and they love it. I get nothing but positive feedback from it.
It's not coming down on people, it's actually providing them with resources and telling them there is a life to lead here.
Correct. Yes.
Is that the message?
That is the message. We want to interrupt violence. We want to change the norms and let others know that if there's an issue, there's other ways to resolve it outside of gun violence.
We dive more into this subject on the other side of this break. Stay with us. Welcome back once again here on Leading Edge for this week. My name is Jeff Smith, filling in for Jerry Anderson. We are talking to Toledo's Save Our Community effort, Commissioner David Bush and violence interrupter Isaac Miles, nice enough to join us. David, in early May, the Blade posted an article about your hire and said Mr. Bush said that he would announce his plan to fight Toledo violence as soon as he gets caught up. Catch us up on where you are in this process.
So right now, Jeff, 24 days in. Things have been 100 miles an hour. So what we're doing is we're building on the success that we've had previously, and what we're going to be doing is rolling out another violence interrupter program in our LaGrange area. Shortly after that, it's going to be in the East Toledo area. We just got finished with the process of looking to hire additional interrupters and also outreach specialists.
How many, initially when this was first announced a year ago, we're looking at 3, we're looking at 4. We had some attrition there. There were some drop-offs. How many do we need? How many are necessary to make this thing work?
Well, in the perfect world, we'd like to see it in every area because we feel our interrupters in the community is like a family member in the community that can help resolve issues. As of right now, we're looking at 9 interrupters and 3 outreach specialists to oversee those 9 interrupters, that is.
One of the things that we talked about in the break, I said to you, I said, some council people have come forth and said they recognize this utter disregard for life on the streets right now. Do you read that? Is that a fair statement, Isaac?
I would say yes. Everybody that I come across don't want change right away. A lot of them are committed to the lifestyle that they live. One thing that I notice is...
but help me understand, what is the lifestyle that they are living? What do you see?
I would say just the life of crime. I would say gang activities, just the shootings, a lot of the youth, the younger guys, 15, 16, 14, they're carrying weapons right away. A lot of them, I like to say,
Sean Mahone just this week said that he took a gun out of a 12-year-old's hand because that 12-year-old told him, I need to defend myself. Right.
Yes, right. And that's the norm. I'm seeing that myself. I can say I see regularly 13, 14, 15-year-olders armed. And that's just the lifestyle that they're living. A lot of them, they don't have anything to lose, to be honest with you. If you pay attention to the homicide numbers, a lot of them 15, 16, 17-year-olds, some of 14-year-olds. So they're starting to see their peers die. They start to prepare themselves for what could be coming with them. For example, I had a cousin, my cousin the same age as me. I seen him in a casket. He got shot. Brian Smith, he died in 2019, 2020. But when I seen him, I pictured myself in that casket, and I start thinking about getting my kids ready for death and those things. And it's almost the same thing with the youth. When we go to these, because when there's a shooting, a lot of times we go to the funerals as violence interrupters. Yeah. We also do 72-hour shooting responses if there's a shooting in a target area. Yeah. So what I notice is there's no emotions.
I want to show you in our last minute, I want to put up a graphic that we pulled together. These are TPD numbers showing the areas where we've had homicides over the last 3 years. And what jumps out to you, David, when you look at that list? I know you've seen these before. I know some of the areas where people might think, oh, that's a high crime area. It's not, right? Or it hasn't been over the last 3 years. What do you read off of this and what needs to happen? Because obviously things are shifting, right?
Obviously.
Yeah.
I see many of these areas lack resources. And many of the young people that we're running into don't have that sense of belongingness. So they don't have anything to lose. I see areas that are ravaged with housing instability, where there's drugs and there's crime. And with that comes the issues that we're seeing bubbling up now.
Save our community. It's an emotional plea, right? It is. But is it too big of a name for this organization?
It is not.
It is
One
not.
of the biggest things we provide, Jeff, you'll probably never see, and that's hope.
Yeah.
People are looking
trying to
for
provide
hope.
it.
We will. We are providing it. It's an uphill battle, but it's something we look forward to doing, and we're called to it.
David Bush, Isaac Miles, continued good luck to you. We appreciate all the work you've done. Good luck with your continued GED classes that you are teaching here in the community, because it's such a great thing.
Well, thank you, Jeff, for everything.
Absolutely.
Thank you,
gentlemen, thank you. And stay tuned. We've got more to come right after this. Welcome back here on Leading Edge. Once again, Jeff Smith filling in for Jerry Anderson this week. Wanted to bring you up to speed on the Stone Foltz case. Obviously, Stone Foltz losing his life in a hazing-induced drinking situation at Bowling Green State University just a few years ago. Rex Elliott joining us from Columbus here today. And Rex, we understand there has been some progression as far as the civil cases are concerned. And just to bring our audiences up to speed, Rex, we've got a civil case that exists against Pi Kappa Alpha National Fraternity. There are numerous civil cases against individuals. What happened this week?
Yes, so the lawsuits that have been filed against Pike and the individuals, many of those have already been resolved. There are only a handful left. Unfortunately, we were unable to reach a resolution with Bowling Green State University based on their role in Stone's death. And the reality is this lawsuit's all about making sure universities all across this country understand that they have a major role in student safety on their campuses, particularly in a situation like this where hazing has been rampant, not just at Bowling Green, but other campuses. Universities need to take a much more proactive step to put a stop to this. That's the point of this lawsuit.
Can you tell us exactly what it is claiming?
Yes, so in the state of Ohio, universities and university officials can be held responsible for hazing injuries and deaths. And that is because the Ohio legislature recognized that we can't place the responsibility for stopping hazing on 20-year-old kids. In fact, Judge Coleman said that in a sentencing last week. He said, if we are going to vest responsibility to stop hazing in 20-year-old kids, we're not going to get very far. So the university has a role in this. We believe that the actions that they've taken to stop hazing on Bowling Green's campus relates to telling people they have a policy against hazing, and then after the fact, cracking down on it. We are asking this university to start taking proactive steps before the injuries and deaths occur.
I don't know if you can go into it or not, but obviously asking for change. Is there a monetary settlement in this?
Any civil litigation involves monetary settlements because ultimately that's the only thing that a court or a jury could ever award. But certainly as part of this lawsuit, we want it to be known universities can be held accountable for deaths like this, and that if they want to prevent the consequences and the trying to be held accountable in the civil system, they need to start taking real reform this time around so we don't have any more kids go off to a university and not come home like Stone.
Rex, unfortunately, we have seen in the news, there have been numerous cases even since Stone's death. It continues to happen. And I know in talking to you and getting to know you a little bit better, this is more of a mission than it is a job. Isn't that the case?
100%. If I never get have another hazing case in my career, it'll be a great thing for me. I was a fraternity member in my college days. I was hazed. I know what it's all about. It's time to put a stop to it. I believe, and as you know, Jeff, the Foltz family has been instrumental in the zero tolerance being adopted by the 14 public universities, but I believe we need to take greater steps, one of which I believe is to suspend fraternities on campuses right now and make those fraternities demonstrate that they can come back and be positive and eliminate hazing. Otherwise, they're not allowed back. And secondarily, I think it's time to end pledge programs in this country. This is where the injuries and deaths are occurring. And it's an antiquated model. There's no use to it. There's no value to it. And it's costing kids their lives. And so I'm asking for every university, if as a condition for these Greek organizations to be on campus, that they eliminate their pledge programs now.
So less of a social structure and more of a concrete. I mean, you look at business fraternities, right? There are other academic roles for fraternities out there. Is that what you're pushing for?
1,000%. There's countless examples, including in sororities, where most of their activities are based on increasing the value of the community, philanthropic activities, doing really great things so that when they put that on their resume, it means something. And that's what we want these fraternities to do. And if they're unwilling to do it, they need to go away.
Rex, talk to me a little bit. Let's go back to the criminal process and the trial of the two gentlemen who kind of rolled the dice, right? They went to trial looking at the evidence. And I think the thing that hung over all of this and the decision that came out of Wood County Court was the understanding that because of the laws in Ohio and the timing of Stone's death, it didn't work out in this case. However, going forward, things will be different.
100%. And Jeff, what I tell you is that eight of these kids that were involved in Stone's death were charged criminally. 6 pled guilty, and 2 were convicted of crimes that under Collins law today would mean years in prison. And so the message to get out there is that if anybody thinks these kids got a slap on the wrist, first of all, a month in jail, house arrest, community service, putting your parents through the financial consequences, being expelled from school, it's going to have it's going to follow them for the rest of their lives. But under Collins law, today, if this happens on a college campus, those kids will spend a very long time in prison, and nobody wants to see that.
Did you see contrition in court?
I saw contrition from Jacob Crin. I don't think I saw it from Troy Henriksen. And the reality is that the argument that was repeatedly made in the trial was one of freedom of choice. And the reason consent is not a defense in a civil or criminal situation is that the Ohio legislature has understood there's an imbalance of power here, that new members are groomed and instructed to do things, and at some point they truly feel there's no way out. So unfortunately, a lot of that crept into the criminal trial, but the reality is those kids had to sit there with their families in that courtroom every single day, and like the Foltz family, relive Stone's death.
Rex, we've got sentencing coming up in July. We know that is the next process in this. And obviously, as you mentioned, a civil case being announced earlier this week against Bowling Green State University. We will keep in touch and keep giving our viewers updates as we go forward. Rex, as always, we appreciate the time.
Thank you, Jeff.
And stay right there. We'll have a final word for this week right after this. Welcome back for a final time on this Sunday. Thank you once again for joining us here on Leading Edge. If you've missed any part of our interviews, you can check them out on the WTOL YouTube page.